One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Rick George. Rick is the athletics director at the University of Colorado. Greetings, Rick. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, great to be here.
Now, Rick, you're 37 years in sports, which is an accomplishment in itself. You've been at Colorado in a chair since 2013. You come over from president of business operations at Texas Rangers. You spent time with the PGA Tour, some nonprofit work. Worked in a couple conference offices in football. You've done a number of things with your career beginning as a recruiting coordinator, which in the 80s was the precursor to what everyone now knows as the director of football operations. And then, of course, you were on staff with Bill McCartney during those super successful times in Colorado football. The question I have for you, right, it's in terms of history and how history can be a weight of expectations, right? The weight of history and tradition with regard to success in athletics. And tell me how taking over the program and, you're a few years in now, tell me how you deal with that expectation based on tradition.
Well, look, I mean, I know the history and tradition. I know the success that Colorado football has had over the years. And, we've got a tremendous history and tradition. And what comes with that is expectation, as you had mentioned. And, as an example, when we made a decision to make a coaching change in football late November, it was a privilege for me to be able to go out and find the next coach, because this is an extremely important hire for the University of Colorado. I took it very seriously, understanding that the expectations of this football program is that we should compete for and win championships consistently. And that's where we have to get to. And so, building that program, and, we built facilities. We're doing some great things in mental health and nutrition and career development and academics. And, we needed the right person to take that job. And we got Mel Tucker, and couldn't be happier with that. And, with great history comes great expectation. And, I think we put ourselves in a really good position to bring that history and tradition back.
Yeah, and I think that even applies when you talk about the broader scale. You're talking about the conference level, the Pac-12, the history of tradition there, obviously, going way back years with the establishment of the Rose Bowl. And let's talk about that when you come into the chair. Now you've taken on not even just Colorado, you take on the weight of tradition with the conference. Obviously, you can only be concerned primarily with what happens at Colorado, but tell me how that goes into conference level thought.
Yeah, look, I mean, we were in a great conference prior to my arrival in the Big 12, and there was a lot of history and tradition in that conference, and a lot of it was steeped around Nebraska and Oklahoma. And we came in the late 80s and 90s and really established ourselves in that conference, and we won a number of conference championships. And now going to the Pac-12, with great schools like USC and Stanford, and what Washington's doing, it's a tremendous conference that we have to be ready to play. We've got to put our best step forward every day, and we're committed to winning championships in this conference. We won a Pac-12 South in football in 2016, but we need to consistently be in the conversation and competing at the highest level with the great schools in this conference.
Right. The brand is much bigger than your individual institution.
It is, but I think our brand, is an important component of the Pac-12 as well. And so I think, again, I think our brand is special. It's unique. It's different. But we're excited to be in the conference, and it's a heck of a conference to be involved with.
Yeah, and of course, I mentioned to you before we started recording, Mel Tucker was a graduate assistant when I was a walk-on at Michigan State. So I really like him, and I was really happy with that hire. And I guess he comes in, and during the interview, you guys probably talked a little bit about tradition and how it's important for him to try to get Colorado back to, consistently winning in football. Imagine any coach, not even just football, right? When you talk about bringing a coach on staff.
Well, yeah, it's all of our coaches. I mean, I think our coaches know the expectation that I have. I don't think there's a lot of excuses why we shouldn't win here. There's some nuances and little things here and there, but we should win and we should compete for championships. And when we were looking for our football coach, I wanted somebody that had a history and tradition. And if you look at Mel Tucker, he played under a great coach in Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin. He's worked for Nick Saban 3 times. He won a national championship with Nick at LSU. He's been at Alabama. He's been at Georgia. He won a national championship when he was with Jim Tressel at Ohio State. And then he coached 10 years in the NFL as a defensive coordinator on 3 different teams and was the interim head coach. So, he's been in a draft room for 10 years, and he knows what it takes to be successful at a level where the student athlete in high school wants to be somewhere down the road.
Right, exactly. And when you talk about those expectations with history and tradition, how do you communicate that with staff and with the culture you build there? When you think about staff and short-term, mid-term, long-term goals on campus?
Well, it's beyond the coaches, and it takes a village, as they say. And we have a pretty consistent message with our staff and our coaches and our student athletes. And our vision is we want to be a world-class. We want to create this world-class experience for our student athlete. At the same time, we want to compete for and win championships, and that's in the classroom, it's in the community, it's in life, and it's on the playing surface. And so everybody knows that that's where we want to be, and we haven't done that consistently yet with all of our programs, but that's where we're going to be. If we're going to create this tradition, if we're going to build on the tradition that we have, we've got to start winning championships in all of our sports. And obviously the 2 most visible are football and men's basketball. But that message that we discuss, all of our staff members knows where we're headed, where we want to go, and they know their role in helping us get there.
I wonder what your experience working in baseball and some of your experience in PGA Tour has brought to you to the table when you took over. Because you were named the president of business operations, I think, in February, and probably 3 or 4 months later, took the job at Colorado. I wonder how that tied into developing the culture for understanding what it takes to be successful.
Well, again, I think being at that level and had learned experiences from both. And really, when I was the CEO of the 4Kids Foundation was really my start, learning how to budget and understanding that whatever you spend, you're not going to be able to give to charity. And so you had to watch your expenses and the revenue that you generated, and with the PGA Tour, I mean, that really gave me the ability to meet a lot of interesting people, but I oversaw everything on the road, so I got to meet CEOs. I had a lot of interaction with players, and they're all independent contractors, right? So you got to be able to understand, and listen to everybody that had different opinions on different subjects, and then you had to make the decision that you felt was in the best interest of the PGA Tour. And then going to the Texas Rangers, we went to 2 World Series right away, and that was great, and that was important for us. And how do we build and how do we leverage that success that, allows us to make our organization better? And, in that area, I mean, I had a $270 million budget, and that helped me understand the revenue generation piece that we really needed, and also, how we could keep our expenses to a low. So, it's all about the net. And we had some success, and we built on that success. And now they're building a new baseball stadium that'll be complete for the 2020 season. And I feel like I had a little part in that a while back.
Yeah, obviously you did. Yeah. I wonder here as we wrap up, you worked for a successful leader in Bill McCartney and other successful leaders throughout your career, and then, of course, a successful baseball player and turned executive in Nolan Ryan. I wonder how the influence they had on you as you continue to move throughout your career.
It's gosh, Ray Davis, who's the owner of the Rangers, I learned a lot from him, but Bill McCartney, taught us about family and faith, and and all of the things that are important about relationships and how you treat people. And I learned a lot from Bill McCartney. I learned a lot from everybody I've worked for, good, bad, and indifferent. And I learned a lot from coaches that I played for, and I probably picked something up from all of them. And as you go through a career, as I've been in this for 37 years, and incredibly fortunate. And it's my responsibility is to make sure that I take the time to help mentor young people as they're coming up, to help them be successful somewhere down the road.
Right. That's good information. Of course, I worked for a long time for Coach Taft at the American Football Coaches Association.
Oh, yeah.
And,
he's a great man.
Right, he is. And I had an opportunity to work closely with the football operations directors and to see that position, the growth of that position, and people now who are in positions such as yourself, athletics director, or Mike Sinkfield, who's deputy over at TCU, and people who have been in that position and watched it grow. I wonder if you have any thoughts on those experiences, that football operations who had a hand in almost everything in terms of athletics when you were in that type of role.
Well, I did, and I think when you're young, you just want to be a sponge, and you just want to do everything they ask you to do. And in those days, I was in charge of recruiting, and I was also in charge of travel and football operations and all the things that go along with that. Now there's 10 people in 2 of those jobs. And, there was maybe 1 or 2 of us in those days. And so you learn to be resourceful and doing the things that you needed to do to be successful. But, at the end of the day, it all comes down to relationships and how you treat people and how they see you. And, your words, important, and you got to do what you say you're going to do. And if you do that, you keep your head down, you work hard, you're going to be successful.
I agree, Rick. Well, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Thank you, Ty.
That was Rick George. He's the athletics director at Colorado. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.